Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome in to this week's edition of the Hot Seat. I am your hostess with the most, Steve Coffee Brown, and we are back in the saddle again. Our incredible panelists are going to be sharing with you guys now on their platforms, and we are getting ready to get started in just a few moments. So, welcome in, everybody. Y'all, listen. Where did Jason go to? Did he just fall off by accident? Listen, I've been in the news the last few days, and I've been concerned about some things, y'all. Been concerned about some things. Can somebody help me with the gas prices?
They suck.
It's crazy. Jason,
I
that's not
put,
helping us with the gas prices.
man, I put 13 gallons in my car and spent about $60. That did not make me very happy.
13 gallons for $60.
That was just diesel.
Wow.
That's why I won't even drive my truck right now, because I heard somebody on the radio in Houston said they put over $150 of diesel in their tank.
Uh-huh.
And me and that guy has the same size tank on our truck. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just leave it parked. We're good. I'll just go crank it up every now and again since it's cold outside.
Wow. I was like, y'all, I said, what is going on with this gas ministry? Who turned on inflation?
Thank you. Absolutely.
Russia.
Hold up, and it went up overnight. It was like, okay, so
it did go up significantly overnight. Like almost we was at like
Friday night diesel was $3.89 here in Houston. I woke up Saturday morning to go to San Antonio and it was $4.29. And about halfway there, some of the fuel stations had diesel at $4.89, and I'm like, good Lord, I'd hate to drive a truck right now.
That is bananas, y'all. That is bananas.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, happy International Women's Day, everybody. We were just having a little bit of sidebar conversation about this ministry that we're all experiencing right now. So welcome in to all our social media families: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I think that's everybody. I don't think I missed anybody. LinkedIn family. So welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the Hot Seat. This is the sequel from last week's session. I am your hostess with the most, P. Coffee Brown. As you can see, we have a number of our phenomenal panelists who were with us last week, and we do have other panelists that will pop in a little bit later in the segment, but we are getting ready to get started and have a dope conversation on tonight. Well, we're going to continue with our dope conversation that we started on last week. Are we raising our daughters while coddling our sons? And so last week, as we got ready to leave, it got a little bit edgy and a little heated. And I like when the oven gets hot. And then I was like, turn the burners off. Turn the burners off. We got to go. And we just left. We left with a lot of unanswered questions. So I want to tap right into where we left off. So we had one of our viewers that came on to the show, and he had quite a few questions. But we left off with a question that he asked as we were exiting out. He asked an interesting question, and I thought this would be a great place for us to start off with. He said, can a woman who is unmarried actually successfully raise an alpha male? So Jason Thibodeau was in the thick of things at the end of the segment as he was sharing his thoughts and ideas on that particular question. But I want to ask the rest of our panel about that. That was an interesting question that was laid out there when he said, hey, can a woman who is unmarried, who doesn't have a male present, can she really successfully raise an alpha male? And so I wanted to start off with our panelists on that part, and we can get right back into the conversation from there. But Jason Williams, what is your thoughts about that? Can a woman successfully raise a male child with no presence of a man, and he be a strong alpha defined male?
I would say that we would have to define alpha male.
Let me pull up Webster's dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, let me see what Webster would say about that.
I think a lot of people have a different understanding of what an alpha male is. And
what do you think it is?
Let's get
your definition. My personal opinion is an alpha male is a man that is driven, strong-willed, but sensitive enough to include everyone, not just his lady, but everyone that's a part of his sphere. But at the same time, understands where he's going and the path he needs to go down to get there. I don't know what Webster says.
I'm gonna tell you what it says. It says a man tending to assume a dominant or dominating role in social or professional situations.
See, to me,
that's vague though.
Right. That's my point. So that's why I believe a lot of us have different definitions of what an alpha male is, and it depends on who you are. For me, I've been present in my children's life. My father was present in mine.
I found something.
Go ahead.
Okay. What is an alpha male personality? So let's look at the qualities. It says self-confident, outgoing, and enterprising. The alpha male personality type goes with the alias. I don't know if we want to agree with this. Bad boy. And alpha males are usually the men who need their men to be men. He's the macho guy who exudes confidence with a tad bit of aggression, but not overly aggressive, who is outgoing and demands respect and is definitely an attractive being.
I agree with most of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with most of it. There are certain steps in there or statements in there that I don't necessarily 100% agree with.
Like the bad boy statement?
Yeah, because you don't have to be a bad boy. I don't think you have to be a bad boy to be an alpha male.
Facts.
It's just I do believe with an alpha male demands respect. Because there's no way, like for me personally, there's no way I'm gonna stand in a room and let you disrespect me and I'm not gonna say something to you. I don't care who you are. Only man I fear is God. Period.
So a guy that's been coddled, does he have that same posture?
That's
the same. Say that again. The same what?
Posture.
Does a guy that's been coddled, does he have that same posture?
It depends on his mama. Because there are, I've seen some mothers that were really, really like tough on their sons and made them realize, dude, don't ever let anybody disrespect you. Don't ever let anybody do this. Don't ever. Ultimately, and this is just my personal opinion, ultimately, can a woman raise an alpha male, like a strong male personality in a boy? I don't think so, not by herself. I think she can raise a great person. I think she can raise a great, strong individual as it pertains to the manhood. But as a man, there are certain things that only, I'll say this, being in relationships where I had blended families, there were times when my stepson would do certain things and his mom would say, oh, you acting just like Jason. And it wasn't because he was acting like me. He was growing into a man. And because he had a man present, he understood how a man should act. Depending on the woman that you're dealing with, there are some women who are a little more emotional, which will cause their sons to be a little more emotional because that's all they see. Not saying feminine, I'm saying emotional, because I know some definite dudes that are highly emotional because that's all they've known to be. So they're sensitive to certain things that most men would be like, ooh, that's not that big of a deal. Let that go right out. But there are some dudes who were raised strictly by mothers that have a different perspective because that's all they saw. So that's all they knew. But just like your daughters Sons seem to attach themselves to their mothers. Daughters seem to attach themselves to their fathers because of the fact that the father is that first male figure in their life, that first love. Most mothers are that nurturing type, so the son gravitates to that because the father is usually hard on the son, so he's looking for that nurturing after dad beats him up a little bit verbally.
Right.
If you don't have those two elements, it's hard to raise a man without or a daughter without those two elements fully. Not saying it's impossible, but it is hard, and and that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of a way to put this into layman's terms. When we talk about coddling, what is y'all's perspective on coddling? What does that really mean? If a guy has been coddled, can you let me ask the ladies, and we'll yield to the guys. Can you really tell that a guy has been coddled, ladies? Can you tell, like, right off the bat, after some kind of time around that guy, that he has been coddled by someone to the point where you're like, this dude has been coddled? What is going on, ladies?
I feel like one of the biggest telltale signs is no sense of responsibility or ownership for the crap that they do. I think when you have somebody around that is constantly making excuses for them, which could be their mom, which could be, not giving them entire ownership of their choices and different things like that, constantly being saved, constantly being rescued, that comes out when they're older, because it comes out, and it also can grow into narcissism, which typically is kind of a telltale. Not all the time, but can be a telltale sign that, listen, the world owes me something. I don't really have to take responsibility. It's your fault. That's kind of like that coddling and, having no emotional intelligence about being able to handle being with another person. Like you can kind of tell, when they're, like I said, again, I think ownership is probably one of the biggest things for me.
So, Lady Victoria, what would you say? And when she said ownership, that's a good sign that somebody has been coddled, because they do lack that ability to take, like instant accountability. Not even trying to pass it off for a while and saying, you know what, I thought about it and you was right. But out the gate, like, oh yeah, I do realize that this is something that I need to work on, and I need to rectify this like yesterday.
Yeah.
What's another indication of coddling?
Right. I agree with a lot of what Mitchell said, but to that I would add, a man that has no sense of direction for his life, for his finances, for anything. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't even really know where he's been. I'm just right here in the moment. If you ask him, what's your 5-year plan? And he can't tell you right away, you've been coddled. Somebody else, like you said, the whole coddling thing is just like raising someone. The definition says raising someone with extreme care or extreme gentleness, being overindulgent. You can't treat a man like that. You can't always be, oh, come on, baby. Come on, honey. Oh, baby, how was your day today? What went on? When I hear women talking like that, I say she is raising a disaster for somebody else, for some woman. She is raising him to be a train wreck. Unless someone else steps in, no can do. I think that's a clear sign of someone that has been coddled. He can't take responsibility for himself. He has no idea where he's going. He can't manage his money. He can't dress himself. Come on.
That's a real coddling ministry right there. The boy can't even put his own clothes together.
That's heavy.
Dress himself.
Ooh, that's a whole lot right there to mention. My God.
That's
heavy. It's so weird, because last week when we were talking about this, and we were talking about the difference between what we've seen in the young men and what we've seen in young women here right now. And Jason Thibodeau, because we got double trouble. Jason's in the building tonight. So Jason Tibnibs was talking about organization that he actually worked with in times past, and he was talking about how the young men responded to exerting leadership, showing signs of having that authoritativeness, not aggression, but being able to say, yeah, my name is whatever. He was talking about the passive mannerisms and stuff like that. And so I was sitting here, and because we started this series, if you will, last week, I started looking at my students a little bit closer because I deal with high school, 9th, 12th grade. And so I said, let me see how they respond to delegation, see what happens, right? And so one of my male students, I said, hey, can you check the rest of the assignments? He snatches the things. I got it, miss. And he was off to the races. Now, 3 or 4 other students, males, they were like, oh no, they might not want me to check their paper. I don't know if they really would like that. I don't think, miss, I don't know if I want to do that, miss. But all of the females responded the same way as that initial male student. I got this. Yeah, I got it. I got it. Go ahead. You do whatever you're doing, Miss Brown. I got this. And I said to myself, I was like, why aren't we teaching our sons about being assertive, looking somebody in the eye, being able to respond effectively in the moment, and being able to say, whatever I need to say in a respectful manner, being able to handle responsibility when it's thrown at them without backing off of it. And I sat there and I said, this is definitely some coddling going on when you don't even want to attempt to exert any authority for apprehension that you're going to be judged. And I'm like, this is not going to be good for them when they get ready to go for certain power positions. If they ever want to have a power position or lead something, or, show that they are the best candidate for a leadership role by exemplifying all of those things. So I was sitting here and I was thinking, I was thinking to myself, are we really coddling our sons and conditioning our daughters to stand on their own 2 feet? And like, yeah, you got to stand on your own 2 feet, girl. You can't depend on nobody else. You got to get out there and make it happen. Why are we not putting that same type of energy into our sons?
I think we're trying to prepare our girls for a relationship and being domesticated. And it's like, we're not preparing our sons to be good husbands and good leaders and stuff like that. But you also have to understand too, depending upon what type of household they came from, they could just be mirroring what they've seen in the males around them. So they could have had a granddaddy that just sat up there all day and they saw grandmama do all the work or whatever. They could have had a dad that was very passive. They could have had a mom that was super aggressive that they were scared to talk to. Like, there's so many factors that make these young men like this. And there's so many factors that make these young women excessively strong, where they don't know how to balance between, they come off like, oh, I don't need nobody. And then now you got these men that's like, okay, well, she don't need me. So what? I mean, so it's just.
That goes along with it too. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No. You're good. You're good. Very good point. Very good point. I think that's something that we definitely need to unpack, because what we need to come to grips with is some of that mentality goes all the way back to the slave days as well. And what I mean by that is, with the slave times, the daughter would be raised a certain way, and most of the time the mom would actually make the son seem like he was halfway retarded, so that way massa wouldn't sell him off. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't smart enough to be a good sale, if you would, to sell off to another plantation or whatever. So he wasn't a good product. He wasn't smart enough to do certain things. And I hate to say, like Mitchell was saying, generational things as well. I'm not making an excuse for this, but if you look at it over the generations, it's gotten better. But I think some of it still happens, some of that mentality, because I'm very social when I'm out, and I pay attention to a lot of stuff, people watching. And I would notice even when I would visit friends, a lot of times the grandparents and stuff would be like, they start making excuses. No, it's all right, baby. And they'll go get on that woman. You make sure you make that man a plate and this, that, and the other. But when the rest of the dudes are out talking and everything else, and you got that one or two dudes, two dudes sitting in the kitchen still, and the rest of the dudes out there playing dominoes and talking like men talk, they start making excuses. Oh, baby, it's just hot outside. He's just a little warm. That's why he in here with the rest of us. No. You come out here with the rest of us. I mean, because even with my little cousins and stuff, I'd go in the house and be like, hey, man, get your butt up and come out here with the rest of the dudes. Oh, man, it's hot outside. And even the mom would be like, no, baby, it's kind of hot out there. It's like, I didn't ask a question. Get up, come out here and be with the rest of the dudes. And it like Jason was saying, it takes that. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about the comment that I made. I was thinking about the comment I made last week when I said, yes, a woman can raise an alpha male. Do I truly believe that? Yes. The likelihood of it happening is slim to none, like my other man Jason was saying. And the reason being is after I said that comment and we got off, I started reflecting back. Now, for one, my dad was always in the picture, even though my parents got divorced when I was in the first grade. But then I started thinking about my cousins, my uncles, other men that I'd been around, even though I wasn't around them all the time. When they did see certain behaviors or attributes, whenever I come around them, just like I do those same little cousins now. You come out here and talk to come talk to us. They would come in that house and pull me out the house when we went out to the country. They would make sure I was around when they were talking, when they were doing things. And granted, I'm a lot more mechanically inclined than most of them because of my father mostly, but they still made sure I went out there, played sports, talked the talk, understood how things were supposed to go, understood, standing up on your own too. And see, everybody thinks about an alpha male and they think you got to be this tough guy. It's not about being the tough guy. An alpha male, if you're really pushing to be the tough guy, you're not a true alpha. You understand what I'm saying? You're more or less a beta trying to portray yourself as being an alpha. See, Koffe, you've been around both me and Jason, during one of the book releases. I have no problem letting that brother shine. That's what an alpha can do. An alpha can be around other alphas and be okay. If I got to be the top dog all of the time, I ain't a true alpha. We can all shine. And an alpha also recognizes when he's around a strong young lady and he'll let her shine as well. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yes, I can be the man of the house. But like one of my other buddies says that I do some business stuff with and film with, I don't have to be the alpha at my house. I'm the alpha when I go out in public. When I'm home, I'm home. And I should not have to establish dominance at my house. There just should be certain things that are understood. And because we're supposed to work together. Like you said earlier, that energy, or was it Lady Victoria, that energy has to offset each other. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We got to be a yin to our yang. So I shouldn't have to come home and try to be an alpha. Mm-hmm. It should already be known when I walk through that door who I am. And I'll rest my mic.
So that, okay. Tamisha brought up something that I think we should unpack a little bit more, because when she talked about these different households, the dynamic of all these different households, and then I think last week we talked about the age of the households in comparison to the age of the households that we were exposed to, where we had legitimately different generations. Now it's just a generation running on. It's like a run-on sentence, kind of, because you're talking about the fact that you got people, some of them having their children younger, and then your mama is like 14, 15 years older, and then your grandmama is just a tad bit older than that. So you got all these generations piled into one. So how do we help? How do we help our children? Just for the sake of the audience, how do we help our children to even be able to identify who would be somebody healthy to even partner with?
That's a darn good question, because it's funny, because raising my oldest daughter, who's now a high school senior, when she was younger, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, whatever, I actually had associates of mine, men that I know, that said, "Dang, man, you raising us so hard and stuff, man. You know, ain't no dude gonna be able to live up, you know, to the you know, be able to step up to the plate." And I looked at them, and for the most part, I said, "Good." Not because I don't expect for her to get out of the house, but I expect for her to have standards. Now, I'm not trying to raise her to a point to where those standards will never be met, but I also don't want her walking around out here like a lot of the young ladies that I see these days, where they're doing a lot of things for attention as opposed to for the right reasons that would actually bring the right man to them. You see what I mean? So I see a lot of young ladies who are chasing these little boys as opposed to the young men actually approaching a young lady. So that, you know, basically the ladies are being, you know, it's almost as if the genders are switching to some extent. And I'm seeing a lot of the ladies be the aggressor and not so much the young men. So yeah, like my oldest daughter, she's dating now. And sometimes she'll ask, she'll be like, "Well, can I go over to my boyfriend's house?" And I was like, "No, he needs to come over here and hang out with us. If anything, he ought to be the one making us feel comfortable with his presence, not you necessarily running over there." Does she go over there from time to time? Yeah. But no, he need to come over here, and going to grandma's house don't count. No, you come over here and hang out with us. You know what I mean? I need to know you. I met your mama, but I need to know you.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to know where I stand. See, that's also a part of becoming a man, is that rites of passage. You know what I mean? So, yes, I raised my daughter to be real strong. There's a lot of dudes at her school that have tried to holler at her, and she just blow them off. They have, some of them even scared to talk to her, just because of her posture. The way that I raised her is like, no, I taught you to look for a certain type of guy. And when he shows himself, you'll know to go over there and say hello. You'll know to speak back. You'll know to exchange numbers then, as opposed to the dude that just walks up and tries to holler at you. Case in point, a year or two ago, her and some of her friends are walking around the mall. She said some dude came up and hollered at one of her girlfriends, one of her homegirls she was hanging with. And I was like, let me guess. He asked for her number. They exchanged numbers, and he walked right back over there where his buddies were and started texting her. She's like, "How did you know?" Because he's been coddled.
Mm-hmm.
See, me and my man Jason here, we come up from the old school. When you walked up and you approached that young lady.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's be fair. Now, in this new age of communication that we exist in, I wouldn't necessarily say that's coddling more so than it is learned behavior.
Okay,
you're talking about a new age of communication. So people in our age
strike
group,
when the iron is hot. They got to strike when the iron is hot.
I mean, in our age group, we still have to address that and say, "Hey, I prefer that we talk as opposed to texting."
Mm-hmm.
It's learned behavior now. I wouldn't necessarily say that would be an indication of coddling.
Coffee, you're coddling.
No, that's not an indication of coddling. It's true. But is that not true, y'all?
There are truths.
Like, I give you a perfect example. Like today,
there's truth to that, but it should not be the standard, is what I was getting at.
Unfortunately, it is the standard. Let me tell you why I say that. My neighbor is a retired police officer,
and
he still works with the police department, and he always talks about this new age of communication and how we even find communication as acceptable, right? So he was telling me, he said, the struggle is with rookie cops because of the new age of communication. They can't even walk up to somebody and spark a conversation. Like, y'all know, back in the day when we used to be in the store or something and the cop was standing there, we just chop it up and talk about whatever, right? Well, he was saying that they don't even know how to do that anymore. I said, well, here's the challenge. This is our new norm, because even employers now, they're texting people. Are you interested in this position? Do you want to get an interview? Everybody is using that as a means of communication. So have we become a coddled society? Is that what we've done?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yes.
That too. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I won't take up too much time, but I will say that a lot of this too is due to the fact that these kids are not forced to communicate anymore. They can go online and be whoever they want to be. They can take whatever pictures they want to take. They can be an entire avatar and be just fine with that. That's why when my kids look at me and they see how I can converse and talk to people and just roll by myself and, you know, go sit at a table for one, they don't get it because they're like, you don't feel embarrassed? No, you know, because they don't have that mentality. Their mentality is coddle. I need to have somebody with me, or I have to, you know, I don't know how to ask questions without feeling crazy. I don't know how to, all they know is social media, text, and that's it. That's all they know.
It's funny you say that because and Koffe, you know where I was earlier this week because we ended up speaking about it. But I just went to a career fair at a junior high earlier this week. And I had to go to 3 different classrooms, had about 20 minutes to talk. And I could tell when I first walked in, I demanded energy from them. I gave them energy, and I saw it kind of die down as I got more serious about what it was. So I just asked them flat out, because I know what most people are interested in. They're interested in money, and they're interested in attention. So I was like, okay, any of y'all want to know how to make money? Of course, everybody raises their hands. I was like, I got 3 quick steps for you. I was like, have respect for people, learn as much as you can about whatever industry you decide to get into, and learn how to communicate. And I don't mean with this, right? I was like, the difference between most people that you see that make meager means and CEOs is the fact that CEOs learn how to talk, because they have to get up in front of the audience and be able to speak to the people to motivate them to actually get the job done. If you're always doing this, you're not a motivator. You might be a social motivator. You know, you might get a little YouTube action or whatever the case may be. But if you're really over a corporation, that ain't going to get it.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Jason, as well. Society, and I mean, here we go. We talked about this a little bit last week, but society overall has made us a nation or a world that loves being coddled. My daughter and I were talking about this earlier today. No, I think it was my son that was saying that. I forgot what the percentage was. There's so many children today that have lost their creativity. They've lost their will to play outside. They've lost those things that would come naturally to them to do. My older grandchildren are always talking about, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. So their mom says, well, if you're bored, I can give you something to do. I said, if you give them a task, that'll help shut down that I'm bored. But they're bored because their TV time is monitored. Their electronic time is monitored. They only get to do so much of it. You don't get to do it every day. They have to read books. They have to go outside and play. They went outside the other day. It was like 30 degrees in Colorado. And she said, go out and play. And you have an hour and a half to be outside. Do not come back to this house before an hour and a half. But they've lost that without their parents monitoring that. Society teaches them that it's okay to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 110%.
Yes. Somebody said we need to bring back Encyclopedia Britannica. I said, well, if we brought it back to the
I have one in the other room.
Yes. I said, would they know what to do with it? Because they're not going to pick up the encyclopedia. They're going to pick up this.
They can Google anything. They can Google anything.
And Google's not always
right. They don't have to work for anything. They don't.
You know what I told them?
I start a business on the phone. You don't need anything.
Yeah. Yes. I told my students the other day, they said, ma'am, you can Google. I said, let me say something. In college, Google, you can't use Google.
That's right. Come on.
Google is not a resource, unfortunately.
That's right.
What? Well, what else can you use if you can't use Google? I said, you got to dig deeper. Google is not the only means of information, but unfortunately, that's what you've been exposed to. And that's a major app on everybody's cellular device. And your brain automatically thinks that that's the authority on what's accurate. And I said, it's not. I said, I've never been able to turn in an assignment in college with a Google as a reference. Nothing from Google. Not even a www.
I mean, you can try. It don't work out too well.
Right.
No, they send you that back and say, "Oh, you don't have proper collegiate references. You can't turn this assignment in. What is this? And what? Why would you even want to turn in something with www dot anything?"
Right.
And if you think about it, so you're talking about references and how we learn and stuff. So if you think about it, every other college student is doing the same darn thing. So when you turn that paper in and they run it through these new programs that they have to check for plagiarism, a lot of people come up with plagiarized. Why? Because they're so easily just grabbing one piece of information and taking it and don't even do the research to find out if it's true or not. So it was funny that you said Encyclopedia Britannica, because I literally have one, and I think my father's old World Book encyclopedia is up there.
Yes, I
And
have
I was
that
asked
too.
before, it's like, you want to get rid of this stuff? And I was like, no, because a lot of this information that you have in there, all somebody would have to do is go shut down a website and that information is gone. And that's already happened to a lot of our history anyway with the word of mouth stuff. So, yeah. But I agree with you talking about these kids and that whole function. But that's what I told a lot of them. It's like, hey, if you don't learn how to do anything for yourself, then you will always be dependent on others. And that's where a lot of the problems come in, is because I meet a lot of women who can do for themselves. Some of them won't, because I used to network. And of course, I have a job where I have to be social. Hell, I'll be at the rodeo tomorrow, drinking and stuff with other, with clients and stuff.
You're going to be drinking water, Jason?
No, but not at all. I will be with libations. Absolutely. But not getting drunk. But you have to learn how to communicate with these people. And if you can't relate to them, if you can't communicate with them, you can't really truly succeed. Because no matter what, there's really no such thing as a self-made millionaire.
It is not.
So you have to have a team. And if you can't communicate with that team, your success will be limited. Here's the deal. When I'm talking about these relationships, that goes for your personal relationships too. And that's, back on subject, that's one of the things that I'm seeing with a lot of these young men, is that all of us as people, especially in this day and time, I feel are somewhat of an emotional wreck with the new age of communicating, COVID being in the house, etc. But I'm seeing it more and more with these young men. Even when I went to that school, ironically, it was a couple of young men that spoke up, and you could tell a lot of them just got down in the chair, didn't want to say anything. Even when I addressed them directly, hey man, what's on your mind? They would just look away. I was like, I'm standing not 2 feet away from you, bro. If we was in the hood, I'd have touched you. It made sure that you understood, that I was talking to you. But we're at a school, and I'm like, dude, okay. So I went on to the next guy. But it is a trait that I see more and more. Like even when I was doing the mentoring, my name is, why you got to look at your name tag? You are 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, and you still got to look at your name to tell somebody who you are?
I think definitely there's a gap there. There's an etiquette gap. There is a knowledge gap. There's a this is like not off topic, but even when you think about the wealth gap, this is the gap inside the wealth gap. And so these are the types of learned behaviors, because wealth is connection, right? Wealth is learning how to talk to people. Wealth is nepotism. Wealth is being able to, effectively converse and efficiently, because a lot of people are where they are, not because they're just so smart and educated. They're where they are because they know how to talk. And they know what to say, and they know how to introduce, and they know how to work a room. I see a gap where, hey, maybe we're not putting together enough nonprofit or classes or requirements that will require these young ladies and young men to learn this stuff, because this is what's going to help them in the world. I don't know. I see a gap in the area of opportunity with that.
I know for me, I'm teaching both my sons and my daughters that when it comes to being a what's the word I'm looking for? A valued person in your community, you have to be what I call a chameleon. You have to know how to speak in the audience that you're in. When you hang in with your homies, speak like your homies. But when it's time to go down and deal with a businessman, when it's time to go down and deal with a bank, when it's time to try to get a job, you got to know how to be that other person. The person that wins them over. And I mean them in so many different ways. Because especially being African American, you definitely have to be twice as good when you present yourself. Because I don't think most of our kids understand how we're looked at And when your children walk up and say something to somebody and they say, oh, they're so articulate, why should they not be?
Correct.
And why did you feel like you needed to say that?
Right.
That's my
Oh, wow, they just speak so well. It's like
Right.
That's
So,
normal.
so how are we supposed to speak?
Right.
So
not only that, but what did you think about me? If you're sitting here talking to me and my kid walked up and
Right.
said something, so did I sound ignorant? Did they sound smart?
That's a whole nother can of worms.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother. We not going down this road. We ain't doing that.
That's the rabbit hole.
Yeah. We're gonna keep it high
Right.
level.
But my point is, it's still, most of it goes back to parenting. Most of it goes back to how did you bring your children up, or how were your children brought up? Because ultimately, it doesn't take a man or a female to make that happen. It just takes someone with the knowledge of understanding how to walk into different rooms and work the room, just because of who you are. Not because you had, some serious etiquette training, but you had enough sense to know, okay, look at the room. Look at your surroundings. Look who you're dealing with. Number one, that's first. Pay attention. Once you pay attention, then you see who you're dealing with. Don't always talk first. That's what I tell them. Don't always talk first. Listen. I was told a long time ago by an older gentleman, he said, you know who the smartest person in the room is? The one that doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because he knows what everybody else is thinking and nobody knows what he's thinking. Until he opens his mouth. But you can get a whole lot of information about who your crowd is just by sitting there listening.
So you learn etiquette, in essence. That's
right.
Etiquette, in essence. Even if it's informal or formal, Mitchell made a great point, because there is a huge gap in education. They've literally annihilated everything about life skills when it comes to the educational system. Now, it's like anything pertaining to life, the skill of life has been totally, it's eliminated. There is no classes where, you go in where both young men and young women learn the standard normal etiquette, how to do this, how to do that, how to add this, how to add that, how to balance a checkbook, how to write a money order, how to do this and do that. How do I go to the bank and request funds for whatever? How do I apply for this? How do I fill out a paper application versus one that's online? And so on and so forth. So the traditional etiquette that used to be offered as a standard for life preparation, it's eliminated. It no longer exists. And if you don't have someone at home who understands this, who even knows it themselves, then there's a very strong possibility that particular component is not going to become a part of our young people's lives until later on down the line.
True.
Where they might run into, somebody like a Tim Mitchell or myself or Lady Victoria or a Jason Thibodeau or a Jason Williams. And Jason might just take somebody under his wing and say, hey, young man, I notice you do this, or I notice you do that. Let me help you in this, because you can tell that they desire for the information. They have this innate desire, right? So I got this desire. I want this, but nobody's there to give it to me. So they're catching up where they should have been launched from, basically, if that makes sense. We're missing
I'll share an example today, even with my 11-year-old, because I'm trying to 11-year-old son, trying to get him. When it comes to teaching my daughter and my son habits, I want both of y'all to learn how to do laundry. I want both of y'all to wash dishes. I want both of y'all to learn how to mop a floor. I want both of y'all to know how to swipe a debit card. I don't want to pick and choose like, okay, you go in there and cook while, no, both of y'all need to learn how to cook a meal. You know what I'm saying? So, but this is tough. I'm being very transparent. It is very tough. Even when I'm out with me and my daughter today, I'm trying to get my son in the habit, which he is in the habit, but he just is not consistent. My daughter, I'm like, don't touch the door. We don't touch the door until your brother touches the door to open it up for me and you. You know, so these are like little things that, you know, his dad and I are trying to instill even more. You know what I mean? Just those little things, being cognizant of your surroundings. You don't hop your behind in the car before two women get in the car. You just don't do that. You know what I mean? So just little things like that. And I will admit, it is hard to instill that in such a social media, you know, driven world. It's just hard, you know.
Yeah.
But hey, you can only do what you can do. But I mean, that's
No. We're not gonna make excuses. Kudos to what it is that you're training your family to do. And you know, and I understand what you're talking about with the whole social media world, because the first thing you got to do is get them to look up from the damn phone anyway, right? Because I mean, everywhere they go, I mean, I've seen grown men literally walk into doors because they was too busy looking at their phone, and this is their place of business. They're the manager at this place of business. They're walking into the door themselves. You know what I'm saying? But I had a question. I'm gonna play my P Koffe for a second, and I'm gonna ask you ladies a question if you don't mind. You had to come.
I'm not here.
No, you're here.
I'm absent.
We have what I would consider 3 strong young ladies on this platform, right? Let me ask you something. So your mother was in all of your lives, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How do y'all look at and I know all of y'all have a friend like this, at least one or two. How do y'all look at, or what do you think about your female friends that were raised mostly by their dad? Even though it may not be a bunch of them, I know each one of us has probably 1 or 2 of them that we know of. What traits do you see?
I actually do not have any female friend in my age group that was raised solely by her dad.
Okay, to Mitchell.
I have one friend who was not solely, but her dad has a very, very high presence in her life, more than her mom. And one trait that I've noticed about her is that she is hardcore. She's very hardcore. But you know what? I admire the fact that she knows what she wants, and she does not back down. And even the caliber of men that she has dated has always been, you know, very high caliber men. And I do believe that that's because she was never in a situation where she was looking for male attention because there wasn't any at home. Now, I was raised by my daddy, but my daddy left me at 21, but my daddy gave me the essentials. Like, he gave me the best part, which caused me to really thrive in a lot of areas too. And I'm not going to, you know, speak on that until, I'm solicited. But yeah, there is a difference.
You, Ms. Victoria?
Well, I'm the same as Koffe. I don't have any female friends in my life that were solely raised by their dad. I do have one example. Actually, a family member of mine, when he and his wife separated, he had sole custody. He had 2 daughters. He had sole custody of his girls. And I can tell the difference in how they are raised compared to some of my other nieces. They're very intelligent. They're go-getters. They know what they want in life. They don't date just anybody. You know, they're in charge of their finances. You know, so they're well put together, and they reflect that in their adult lives now. So I can
the reason I asked that question,
and my friends that their dads are present, but they have a balance of power with masculine and feminine energy. So it's like dad is very, very present, but that soft side that is that necessary balance to have, especially in womanhood. Mom is definitely present. Dad's his handiwork in that right here and here is real. It's real evident. Even in, I'll even bring it so far as to current tense. Even in my children, you can tell their dad has been gone for almost 11 years, but you can tell that their dad had a strong hand in the way that the girls are, for sure.
And you've also had female friends that were raised solely by their moms. So you saw, or at least noticed, a difference when the male presence was there and when they were not, right?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
All I'm saying is take what you noticed, flip it. And then you'll understand what Jason and I are seeing. Because you have more households where you have the mom present than you do with the dad. So you have more or less a lot of time with the nurturer and not as much of the what perceived disciplinarian, right? Because even my mom was a disciplinarian. I got it on both ends.
And I'm definitely a disciplinarian.
Yeah, yes, you are.
A strict disciplinarian.
And so are you, lady. But you understand kind of what I'm saying. And so when you take what you just said and what you notice with the young ladies as well as yourselves, having your dads present and then your friends or other young ladies who was mainly raised by their mom, you notice a difference in the energy even there with the young ladies.
But you know what, Jason? I will
take that with the men.
There's different types of dads.
There are. I'm not saying just because you got a dad there, it means anything.
Yeah, because there are some fathers
right now who is a actress and a writer, and I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think her dad was like almost like a borderline pimp. If you watch how she dressed sometimes when she puts on a suit.
And see,
so she's not a dude. She's very feminine, but her demeanor, her posture.
Full transparency, my dad was very passive.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very passive. My mother's not like that. My dad is extremely passive. My mother's very assertive. So I was raised in a kind of like you said, kind of a flipped type of household where my mother's personality was the dominant personality in the household. My dad kind of gave in. You know, my mom would be like, if she would come at him about something, after a while, my dad would just be like, all right, you got it. And he would just concede. So I was raised in kind of a different type of environment from a dad perspective. So I wanted to bring that to light because I know a lot of times we talk about dads, but the thing about dads is what kind of dad are we referring to?
Right. But his presence was still known.
Oh, absolutely.
He still had a posture that was instilled in you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so even if your mom was the
might have talked trash to my daddy, but not all 8 of us. We weren't coming from my dad. That's what we wanted.
Exactly. So even though he may have accepted certain things from that lady, he was not going to accept. That's what I was saying earlier. It's like I don't necessarily have to be the alpha at my house.
Jason, did you see Taylor came to church like 45 minutes late?
Did I? Oh. Taylor did say he was gonna be here. Hey, welcome, man.
Welcome.
Taylor did say he was coming to church.
Make it.
He did say he was coming to church. He did.
Hey, we giving the benediction and taking up collections, sir.
I mean, he was preaching earlier. Y'all gotta go see his Instagram when he was preaching earlier.
Hey, I don't want to miss the rapture. I made it just in time.
Hey, but you know what? One thing that you would definitely like, Taylor, is even more so of what we were talking about last week, and Tomitcha even brought it up, is how she made sure that both her sons and her daughters, and Jason mentioned the same, how they're both making sure that both their sons and daughters are self-sufficient and stuff, but also understand gender roles for the most part. So it's not necessarily being overly assertive or just being dominant, but just more or less understanding. Is that a good way to put it, guys?
What's the crime with gender roles? I mean, like last week, I'll say this. Who was it last week that was tripping about, not tripping, but was talking about gender roles?
Well, I know Doc brought it up, and then there was a guy in the comment section that had a couple things. So it almost made it seem as if they would have been on the same platform, there may have been a conflict. I don't know. But, you know, they were coming from totally opposite perspectives. So it's not to say anybody was right or wrong. But
what's wrong with gender roles? I think gender roles are a part of human life.
They are. And that's where I think the water gets muddy. Is because with the newer societies that we have now, remember you listening to Lady Victoria talk about, and you talking about communication with the newer society and this, that, and the other. It also gets muddy when you start talking about gender roles and what's acceptable for certain things, you know, with certain people and everything. Because at the end of the day, there was a video clip that my wife showed me. And it was talking about a gentleman that was addressing gender roles. And I don't know who these other people were on there. They to me, they were questionable. I don't know if they were ladies dressed like men or men dressed like ladies because they had beards and I wasn't sure. And I don't care. But at the end of the day, he brought up a really good point. He's like, you can identify whatever the hell you want to. However, at the end of the day, your DNA says a particular thing, and there is a code there. So when you die, you can be a dude that decided you was a woman when you die, but when that archaeologist from futures coming dig you up, you're a dude. When he looks at those bones and he looks at that DNA.
You what? Can you repeat that? Say it one more time.
Don't get him. No, you can't say his wife
or lady or whatever. You know, not what you put up here, but what.
Listen. Okay, to all those that are watching, this is not an area that we talk about on the hot seat. This is one area that is banned from the hot seat. Now, Jason Tibnibs.
I'm just talking high level.
He's just talking from a whole nother show platform, from the Tibnibs show. This has nothing to do with the hot seat. And just for the sake of argument, everything that's being said at this time
are my own ideas.
It's his own ideas.
I claim them.
And it's not encouraged.
I own them.
And it's not encouraged by the producer of this
I still
show.
love you. I don't care what you are. As long as you love yourself and have respect, I still love you. I don't care what you do.
Whatever he says is not encouraged by the producer of this show.
No. And I wasn't trying to go off on a tangent. I was just talking about, you was asking about, why did that even come up? And I was just saying, we had two different people. I'm trying to make sure both my fingers show up. There we go. We had two different people that was talking about, I know, because you keep seeing that one, right? But I wanted to make sure that, it was understood that you had two different perspectives last week, and, they were on different ranges. So, I mean, I don't think that it really matters, gender, so much. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you're a dude, you ought to be doing dude-like things. But it's okay to learn how to cook. It's okay to learn how to clean. I mean, hell, I mop floors and stuff too.
Taylor said he's against cooking, and it's something about his religious preference and something like that.
But you know what, Taylor, I'm gonna say something that my old man used to tell me. That is perfectly okay. But Taylor also said one thing. He knows how to cook. He knows how to clean. Yeah. He just chooses.
Here's my apprehension, Taylor. When Taylor meets a hot toddy, because he's Toxic Bae, y'all don't know Taylor's Toxic Bae.
Taylor's being quiet. He's muted.
Yeah, he unmute that button. He's Toxic Bae, so I don't know. He might meet a hot toddy, and he might be trying to get in that kitchen and throw something in there.
I think that, this conversation comes up a lot, especially when I'm dealing with some people. Some people don't mind cooking. That's not even the least of their problem. They just want somebody faithful and, all the other.
Listen here. The hierarchy of needs. Let's go.
Absolutely. But I think that for me, I love to clean and wash dishes and stuff like that. So I think there's fair
exchange. Okay. I like it.
But it's just something that I just dislike. I hate cooking. And I tried a few times, and it's like I have to taste the food, and tasting it, I'm full. It's like, okay, I don't even want it anymore, right? And so I don't know. I just love the fact, especially like in the African culture where they're served. I just love that feeling. Like
some type of way,
100%. It makes me feel amazing, right? And not only that, like I don't have a problem serving my woman too, right? And you can serve in different areas, right? And I just think cooking for me is just something that I don't want to have nothing to do. I mean, I even go as far as, stuff should be at the house. Like, say for instance, if they're like, I don't even want to worry about there's no food in the fridge. Like that should never be a concern. It should just, if you don't feel like cooking, then let me know ahead of time and say, hey, can you pick up something? Can you grab something? Or there's food in the fridge. I don't feel like cooking today. No problem. But that department, I just don't want to even have a thought or concern about. That's all.
You know what, Taylor? I have a newfound passion for you as Toxic Bae because you're willing to wash dishes.
100%. Nothing for me.
That changes everything.
It's easy.
Say no more. That changes everything. You gonna wash the dishes?
100%. I do it every time.
I'll cook it all.
Won't do it. I'll pay somebody to do it.
Hey, I just put a brand new dishwasher in this joint Monday.
Jason, you washing the dishes?
I ain't washing now dish. I'll put them in the dishwasher.
Right.
You push that button. Boop. But if you want me to use my hands,
Are you putting the soap in there too? Are you at least putting a little jetpack in there?
I will, but it's not
before I even put them in there.
Are you rinsing the dishes?
I was raised in a household.
Correct.
I was raised in a household where my dad and mom decided they wanted to put a dishwasher in our kitchen, and it was beautiful. We were kids. We were like, "Yes, we got a dishwasher." They never hooked it up. It was just a dish rack.
So it was an ornament.
They played us so close to the left. It was just like
value to the house.
It was a key feature to be able to get more value out the house when you sold it.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, that's
I was so mad about that. We wash dishes forever. When it comes to washing dishes,
You say you ain't gonna do it, Jason?
No, I'll pay somebody though. Anybody willing?
Can you at least rinse the dishes off and put them in the dishwasher?
I do that. I'll do that. I'll like if I see too many dishes in the sink, I'll put them in the dishwasher and turn it on. But I'm not gonna sit there at the sink talking about.
You're not gonna put them in there.
But Coffee,
you gotta make sure.
But Coffee, do you see how a lot of these little things, these little bitty things, and they're not bad, can add up or even look like coddling? So it really just depends on how this person was raised. Jason Williams just hate washing dishes. That's it. But that doesn't mean that he was coddled.
Like Taylor hates cooking.
Like Taylor doesn't like cooking.
Right.
That doesn't mean that, so it's really, you do have to dive a little bit deeper when it comes to these things, because there are some things around, it doesn't mean that I was coddled. I just don't like doing it. But, or whatever.
That's good you mentioned that, because he did say, he gave us a full backdrop of why he don't want to do it.
It makes sense. Like, okay, I know that I'm not going to even bother him to wash dishes. I'm not going to even bother him.
Even with Taylor saying, when I was raised, it wasn't this wasn't required of me to learn this. And as I became an adult and I attempted to do it, I found that I didn't enjoy it. And so I found another way to deal with this, because I got to eat, period. I got to eat. So I just figured out another way to deal with it. And
because that could be misconstrued as being like lazy or not being a contributor or not being a partner or not being, but that's not the case,
A woman can easily accuse a guy of being coddled for not wanting to cook.
But you know what? At the end of the day, they're still a dude.
Mm-hmm. I hate it here. I absolutely hate it here.
You have plenty of
but
men.
You know what?
Like Taylor said, he'll clean. So you have plenty of men that love to do some of these things that are supposed to be gender specific.
Taylor said that. He said he loved to clean.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So does that make him weird, or does that make him, out of sync with his manhood, his masculinity? Because he loves to clean. Yeah.
He's good.
That's
I remember in college, I dated a young lady where the dad cooked more than the mom. That didn't make him any less of a man. He also still got out there on that farm. He got on that tractor. He went and fed them cows. I mean, they was from the country, but I mean, he probably cooked more than the mom did. That doesn't make him any less of a man. Sure. So that's what I'm saying. So to attach just gender to it, that was my point earlier. That doesn't necessarily make you more or less of a man. At the end of the day, we're adults. And if you have a household, then there's a certain thing called responsibilities. That's why I don't like people to just attach a gender to it. But there's also what I like to call a posture and how you carry yourself and how you run your household and stuff. What is expected of you? What kind of communication do you have, within your household and everything else? So you've heard both these young men and young ladies say that, hey, there's certain things within the household they either will do and won't do and everything else. Well, okay, if you're going to be with them, there's a certain thing that you understand they're not going to do. Does that make them any more or less of a man? No, that makes them adult because they actually communicated it with you, right? Not using these. They actually had a conversation, right?
And Jason, when you get done, Taylor was going to hop in with something.
Go ahead. No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody in some areas of their lives, there's something that they don't like doing. I've run into a lot of women that don't like to iron, right? And I love it. Like, I'll iron, I wash clothes. Like, these are the things that I see, and that's the thing. These are the things that I did growing up, right? I ironed my clothes, I washed my clothes, I did all that stuff, fold clothes. Like, to me, that is not even a thought. Like, it's natural, it's easy.
Taylor, I avoid ironing like the plague.
Baby, I'm about to stretch out these clothes with my thighs anyway. It's fine. It'll be all right. These arms and legs, it'll stretch it all out.
I will take a
It'll be
spray
okay.
bottle. I will take a spray bottle and spray down something and then dump it in the dryer before I go iron it.
But I will iron like the cleaners.
Same here.
But I won't wash dishes.
That's my son.
I will
My
take
youngest
a
son.
gift from the cleaners and re-iron them just to make sure my crease is nice.
Okay.
Is that a man thing or something?
Okay. No,
Hey,
that's
baby,
a
when that
dude
dress shirt
thing.
show up and it's looking crispy, you noticed. You saw me when I walked in the room.
Right.
My son can leave one wrinkle out. He irons his clothes with precision.
Right.
And he's a military man, but this was before he went into the military that he was this way. He will iron his clothes with precision. If he takes it off the ironing board and there's an itty bitty wrinkle that nobody sees, he's going back to the ironing board because it's not perfect. I'm like, dude, nobody.
You know what? Still dudes.
You got a jacket on under your shirt. Nobody knows. He's like, I know.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it's the princess and the pea. I can feel that wrinkle under those 20 mattresses. She can feel the pea. I can feel that wrinkle. I'm like, God bless your ministry. Go on about your day. Have a good one.
That's a lot.
And that's a pet peeve of mine. Wrinkle clothes.
Yeah.
It's I can't. Yeah, it's a pet peeve. Or something out of place in the house. Like, you know,
It sounds like an OCD ministry. That's what it sounds like.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just an organized ministry from the military.
Could be that.
Hey, look, maybe the military is OCD.
There are aspects.
I wasn't in the military. Don't want to be
either.
Maybe we're just structured.
They're still dudes.
Hey,
Jason,
God love.
look, Taylor, Jason keeps going back to, and you know what? They're still dudes.
That's hey, look, God loved to do things in order. He's orderly
and in order.
Absolutely. There's a place for everything, and that's how the household needs to be ran.
There you go.
Scary, very scary, y'all. Very, very scary.
Wow.
Well, we are literally at the top of the hour, past the hour. You know, Pastor Makeshift Taylor came into the sanctuary fashionably late on tonight, but we accepted a man. During the benediction, he said he wanted to make sure he was in the rapture. He didn't want to miss being saved tonight. So we want to thank him for being on the ark with us.
Thank you. You know, one thing that I learned in the military is that you don't miss movement, meaning that it doesn't matter if you're running with your duffel bag and stuff. When they say this is time to move out, you got to be there. Although we didn't move out. I caught the train. We
moved in. we moved in. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the segment on tonight. We had a phenomenal time talking about, are we raising our daughters while coddling our sons? I think we got some resolves on tonight, thinking a little bit broader in our perspectives on how this coddling situation even really looks. And if it is really even coddling more than it is perceived coddling, where we are making assumptions without factual evidence, or we don't have a clear understanding of why a person is a specific way. So I absolutely love the fact that we dug deeper into that to talk more candidly about why people are moving the way they're moving, why they behave the way they behave, and respect for the time that we're in, and understanding that some of what we used to call coddling is now considered as normalcy. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's now considered as normalcy. So that just means that some of us might have to do a little adaptation to this new ideology, whereas others like myself, I'll stick with what I know. I'll stick with what I know. I don't know how accepting I can be with some of the new age thoughts and ideas. And I do think that some tradition is good tradition. Not all, but some. Some tradition is good tradition. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's edition of The Hot Seat. Again, happy International Women's Day to all of the women out there from across the globe. Thank you so much for all that you do, all that you are, and all that you will give to our incredible world. There is no woman left behind in International Women's Day. We all play a role. We all have a part. It's just a matter of making sure that we do it. With that being said, we'll see you all again on next week's edition of The Hot Seat. Until then, grace, peace, and blessings to you and your family. Enjoy the balance of your evening. And thank you again to our incredible panelists. And we'll see you all again on next Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Good night, everybody.